This thrift store worker's once-in-a-lifetime discovery sparked a heartwarming chain of events. As a group of thrift store workers are rummaging through a load of donations, all appears normal. But then they make an eye-opening discovery. Somehow a priceless object has made its way into one of the containers, leaving one particular volunteer stunned. And she can't believe it's ended up in her shop. The lady in question was Teresa Farron, who's a resident of Arizona. She offers her time at Phoenix's Christian Family Care thrift store every week, dropping in for a one-day shift to help out. Yet nothing could have prepared Farron for what happened that one particular day. Farron had made similar discoveries during her spell at the shop before. Thrift stores can be a treasure trove in that respect. You never know what could be hiding in an overflowing box. But this find was different. You see, it went on to spark a chain of events that would warm even the coldest of hearts. So we know what you're thinking. What did Farron and her colleagues actually stumble across? It must have been special, right? Well, special is probably an understatement. This thing certainly shouldn't have been sitting in a thrift store waiting to be given away. It deserved a lot more love and respect. Yep, the object in question was a purple heart medal. Now there's a good chance that you've heard of these before, but if you're unaware of their purpose, don't worry. The aforementioned items have held incredible importance since they were first created back in 1932. Purple Hearts are awarded to men and women who suffer injuries in battle during their time with America's armed forces. They're also handed out when a soldier loses their life during service. So these medals are a big deal. And lots of them have been made down the years. According to the National Purple Heart Hall of Honor website, it's estimated that close to 2 million people have received the medal since the early 1930s. That's quite a figure, wouldn't you agree? But the last place you'd expect to find one of them is in a thrift store box. And that brings us back to the Christian Family Care thrift store in Phoenix. How does Farron recall the moment when she spotted the Purple Heart for the first time during her shift? Well, she spoke to Good Morning America in May 2021, reflecting on that fateful day from a few months before. Farron said, "Well, I'm at the back of the shop and I get the donations in and I price them. A lady brought the medal over to me and I saw that it was a Purple Heart. I just felt that I needed to get it back to where it belonged." It's a feeling that Farron was quite familiar with already, as she explained to the CNN website in February 2021. The thrift store worker said, "Every time I've ever seen medals in a Goodwill donation or something I'm like, why is this here? This needs to be with the owner." Speaking of which, was anything else found with the Purple Heart? You bet. A number of other medals and keepsakes were lined up alongside the Purple Heart, held together on a tattered display board. Some snippets from a world map had been stuck down too, which might have indicated where this person had served. So the pieces of the puzzle were there, Farron just needed to assemble it. How did Farron go about it then? She took a closer look at the Purple Heart, searching for any viable clues. Luckily for the Arizona resident, she noticed an inscription on the rear end of the medal. There was just one problem, though, she could barely make it out. That proved to be a pretty big thing, as it resulted in Farron making a mistake that cost her time. We can only imagine her frustration. Thus, the volunteer looked back on her error while speaking to Good Morning America. Farron recalled, "Originally I read the name wrong. I thought it said Erlk, so I was online trying to find that and it didn't work out. So, the Purple Heart sat on my kitchen table for a couple of weeks. But finally, I found the correct name. Yes, the medal once belonged to a guy called Eric Carl Blauberg." Now Farron had a solid lead to work from. Maybe she could find the man himself before seeking out other members of his family. Assuming that the Purple Heart wasn't awarded after his passing in the military, of course. So the thrift store worker continued with her investigation. Yet Farron discovered that Blauberg had passed away in 1988. He was just 58 years old at the time. But she also found out the former serviceman was staying in Arizona prior to his death and he'd owned a place in Apache Junction. Thus the amateur sleuth turned her attention to his relatives. While he was alive, Blauberg had fathered 8 kids. One of them is a woman named Lisa Walker, and she was nowhere near Arizona, she lived in Florida. Now Walker and Farron's paths were on a collision course as the latter started to make some important phone calls. Farron told Good Morning America, "I contacted Find a Grave, which led me to the cemetery, which led me to the funeral home. And the funeral home had all the names of Lisa's family. I contacted one of her brothers but didn't make a connection. She refused to give up, though. I finally went on Facebook and got a hold of Gary, one of Blauberg's sons," Farron continued. "And Gary said he was a little bit shy, but his sister Lisa wasn't. So, she called me back that afternoon. Following all that hard work, the volunteer secured the connection she needed to get the medals back to the family. But that leaves us with a big question: where did Blauberg earn the Purple Heart? What conflict was he a part of with the US Armed Forces?" Well, the Fox News website provided an answer. The dad of 8 served in the Korean War, which spanned 3 years between 1950 and 1953. It's often dubbed the Forgotten War in America, as around 5 million people were killed in that conflict. According to Fox News, Blauberg was handed his Purple Heart there, escaping the same fate. It must have been a bittersweet moment for the guy. So what happened after that? Unfortunately for Blauberg's kids, they didn't have the time to form a bond with their dad. Because he'd packed his bags and said goodbye to the clan when Walker was only a youngster. That meant his wife was solely responsible for looking after the group. It couldn't have been easy. Farron filled in some of the blanks during a chat with Fox News in February 2021. She said, the kids were estranged from Blauberg. They knew who he was, they talked to him occasionally, but they didn't really know him very well. Plus the group didn't receive any of his possessions when Blauberg passed. Who got the medals, then? Walker shed some light on that while speaking to WKMG News in March 2021. The Floridian revealed that Blauberg's physician had been guarding the items following his death. But she was still baffled how they eventually got to Farron's shop in Phoenix. Yet Farron believed that no one other than Blauberg had actually touched the awards prior to their arrival at the store. In her opinion, the veteran may well have laid them out on the board himself. As she told 3TV, they'd probably been like that since 1951 or 52 when he got those medals. So how did Walker react after Farron got in touch with her family? She looked back on those moments with Good Morning America, revealing that they'd become friends. Given the efforts of the Arizona resident up until then, we shouldn't be too surprised at that development. Walker said, when I got the phone call, of course I was in a little disbelief. And we laughed together and cried a little bit together. I was just in shock that after 30-something years of my father's passing that these medals came back to us. Yet the surprises didn't end there. Speaking to Fox News, Walker noted, this is one of the only things that we have of our dad. We didn't even know he had a Purple Heart. I knew and my brothers knew that he had medals, but we didn't know he had a Purple Heart, so that was very shocking. There aren't many people who can relate to what Walker and her clan were going through. It's a pretty unique situation to say the least. But there is another family that experienced something similar to this back in January 2020. The drama took place in Marine City, Michigan. A while back a man spotted something strange on the sidewalk. Upon closer inspection, he realized that it was a container teeming with old medals. And as he dug through the collection, a Purple Heart appeared. Talk about stumbling on a treasure trove, right? So what did the guy do next? Well, he didn't want to leave the items on the street, so he picked up the container and took it back to his house. But he had no intention of keeping those priceless mementos for himself. Much like Farron, he was eager to find out who the medals belonged to, so he did a bit of digging. But sadly the man didn't make a lot of headway. He was able to identify the inscription on the Purple Heart's rear end, yet he struggled to reach any relatives. The soldier's name was William H. Upton. And the guy spent years searching for a connection that never came. He couldn't tap into the same luck Farron benefited from. But everything changed at the turn of 2020. He opted to hand the keepsakes in at the St. Clair County Department of Veterans Affairs. This government office then sent out a message via its Facebook page. The hope was that someone connected to the Upton clan would see it. And it didn't take long until they responded to the social media post, getting in touch just 24 hours later. That's quite a turnaround. It turned out that Upton was involved in World War II, doing his part for the U.S. Army Air Forces, according to his family. The veteran passed away in 1993, reported the Times-Herald newspaper, and his daughter couldn't speak highly enough of him. Marguerite Kolka told the newspaper, there are no words to describe what an amazing man he was. If he were born today, he would be an extreme sports person. We all played sports and he coached everything. But as she continued to praise her dad, Kolka tried to figure out what happened to the Purple Heart as well. Kolka was at a bit of a loss. She said, how the medals ended up on the side of the road, I don't know. Despite that, she had a faint idea of who might have been holding the Purple Heart before the drama. Because her late sibling kept the mementos while she was alive. Kolka's sister was also a frequent visitor to Marine City, so the answer's in there somewhere. And the Upton clan retrieved the items a short time later. Speaking of which, how did Farron plan to send Blauberg's stuff back to Walker? Simple really, she used the mail. And once Farron had sent the Purple Heart and the other medals through the postal system, Walker decided to store everything inside a frame. She included a couple of photographs of Blauberg, too, rounding off the display. To say the Floridian was emotional when she held it in her hands would be a big understatement. Walker informed WKMG News, I'm just happy that we finally got part of my dad back. This is where he should have been to begin with his family, not in a storage box somewhere. I think it was meant to be. For it to get into Farron's hands, knowing she wasn't going to give up to get it back into our hands.